The first thing you notice is the sound. Not the roar of chariots or the clash of spears, nothing so dramatic. Just wind, gentle, unhurried, sweeping across the grasslands like an old grandmother brushing sand from a woven mat. It carries the scent of acacia bark, river mud, and a little something else earthy, minty, bitter. Almost like mouthwash. Welcome to Nubia. 3,500 years ago. You probably won't make it through this day. But that's the point, isn't it? You're here to drift, not to dig trenches or forge treaties. So while the pharaohs are busy in Egypt building pyramids and yelling about taxes, you'll be over here, standing beside the Nile, watching a boy chew on a stick and wondering why it smells like clove. If this is your first time with us, welcome to the slow lane. Be sure to like and subscribe for more half-minus forgotten herbs, archaeological ambiguity, and linen-minus wrapped plot lines. And tell us in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. We like to imagine a little world map of sleepy travelers. Now let's ease into tonight's journey. You walk the edge of a village made from mud, brick, and dreams. The walls are low and sun-baked, with occasional cracks patched by hands that have patched for generations. You hear cattle lowing softly in the distance and the clink of pottery being stacked, probably by someone you'll meet soon. Someone with suspiciously good teeth. The sun is gentle today. Even the flies seem sluggish. A woman walks past carrying a basket of crushed acacia twigs, humming a tune older than memory. She nods. You nod. No one's in a rush. The Nile isn't. Why should you be? Today's historical fact archaeologists have found that Nubian skeletons dating from 2000 to 1500 BC show surprisingly low rates of tooth decay. And no, it wasn't fluoride. It was plants. Chewed, boiled, powdered, used with a kind of herbal instinct that modern dentists would sell their dental chairs to understand. You pass a boy crouched by a palm-minus leaf mat, holding what looks like a stick. HES not whittling. HES cleaning his teeth. With a smile as wide as the river, he crunches the end of the twig until it fans out like a brush, then scrapes gently. His gums are pink, his technique flawless. His stick, Salvatore Persica, also known as the toothbrush tree. Obscure tidbit: these twigs weren't just tools. They were sometimes traded, blessed, and even offered at burials. In one site, archaeologists found a perfectly preserved bundle of dental twigs wrapped in linen, the ancient version of a travel toothbrush kit. Behind you, a woman spits into the dirt discreetly. It's part of the routine: chew, brush, rinse, spit. Not glamorous, but surprisingly effective. And better minus tasting than most modern mouthwash. Though to be fair, so is boiled cabbage water. Historians still debate whether this dental care was formalized ritual or just common sense passed down by grandmothers too wise to write anything down. But what's clear is this: in Nubia, oral hygiene wasn't optional. It was daily, practiced, undurable. You wander on, past a potter shaping a water jug. He glances at your teeth and offers you a twig. You take it. It smells faintly of pepper and river mud. You put it in your pouch. This might come in handy. Far off, the Nile glimmers like brushed tin. The wind stirs the papiers. A crocodile eyes you with lazy disdain. Don't worry, he brushes too. You sit beneath a tree, surrounded by the slow sounds of ancient life. And you wonder, not for the last time, how a civilization that didn't have toothpaste somehow had breath fresher than yours. Sleepy irony, yes. But then again, the past always had better manners than expected. You wake still beneath the tree to the sound of mortar and pestle. Someone's grinding herbs. The air is thicker now. Afternoon warmth has wrapped the village like a linen shawl, and every sound feels soft, muffled, slow. A rooster calls out in the distance, then immediately regrets it. You rise, brushing dust from your knees, and follow the sound. Behind a woven reed wall, you find her. A healer, or maybe just a grandmother with good instincts, seated cross-legged on a low platform, surrounded by bundles of dried plant stalks. Some hang from strings like papier chandeliers. Others rest in clay bowls, sorted by color or scent, or maybe cosmic alignment. It's not clear. She doesn't look up, but gestures to a stool. Use it. She holds up a handful of leaves and says something in a language you don't understand, but your teeth tingle as if they do. Today's historical fact studies of dental calculus on ancient Nubian teeth have revealed the presence of tetracycline, an antibiotic produced by a type of soil bacteria. Somehow, the Nubians were regularly ingesting this compound, likely through fermented grain or herbal infusions. In other words, they were micromanus dosing antibiotics. Thousands of years before modern medicine. You watch as she mixes crushed bark with what might be myrrh, or possibly just dirt that smells expensive. She presses the powder into a small linen wrap, folds it like a napkin, and hands it to you. You place it in your lap like it's sacred. Because, well, it kind of is. Obscure tidbits: some Nubian villages used to infuse chewing sticks with incense resin before weddings. It was just about freshness. It was symbolic purity of breath for purity of heart. Or maybe just an ancient version of breath mints before the big kiss. The woman hands you a different twig, this one darker, shinier, smoother. You chew the end as instructed. It tastes like Cinnamon's distant cousin who dropped out of school to study bitterness. Not unpleasant, just assertive. She smiles. You smile back. Your gums buzz slightly. Historians still debate whether Nubian healers actually understood bacterial infection or simply observed patterns over generations. Did they know why their herbal blends worked? Or did they just keep doing what made people stop groaning and start smiling again? A goat bleats somewhere nearby. A child sneezes. A reed curtain flaps lazily in the breeze. The woman begins grinding again. Her rhythm as steady as the Nile's current. You notice a shelf behind her act with clay jars labeled in charcoal glyphs. You imagine each one contains a cure, a flavor, or maybe just a local gossip in powdered form. She leans over and dabs a bit of paste onto your finger. You instinctively touch her teeth. It's cooling, sharp, strange. You sit very still, savoring the numbness and wondering if time has slowed or your jaw has simply gone on vacation. The sun lowers, the shadows stretch. You leave the hut with your mouth tingling and your spirit oddly calmed. The herbal packet tucked into your belt gives off faint wisps of scent as you walk. You think you might sleep with it tonight, just to see what dreams herbs inspire. Somewhere, a man calls out to herd his goats. The woman doesn't wave goodbye. She just returns to her grinding. And your breath, for once, is truly fresh. You walk beside the Nile now, slow steps leaving shallow prints in the dust. The river glides past like a very large, very old snake with no interest in you whatsoever. Which, honestly, is a relief. The breeze smells of silt and warmth and something faintly medicinal like crushed sage mixed with memory. You've been chewing your twig again, mostly out of curiosity. It's grown softer, more pliant, and tastes oddly comforting. Like a bitter tea someone swears is good for you, and by the third cup you start believing it. Ahead, you spot a gathering. A group of villagers, mostly elders and children, huddle around a low table covered in cloth bundles and tiny pots. At the center, a lanky man in a woven shawl stirs something in a large ceramic bowl with the concentration of a poet who just discovered soup. H.E.S. not a priest, not a merchant, but something in minus between a kind of herbal archivist. His job? To remember what each plant does, and which ones you should never combine unless you enjoy hallucinating about flying abysses. You sit on a flat stone at the edge of the circle. A child offers you a dried fig. You accept. Today's historical fact in ancient Nubia: dental practices were not merely about hygiene, but also about status, health, and community ritual. Certain compounds were used in public healing ceremonies, where herbal remedies were applied to the gums as part of spiritual purification rites. The man dips his fingers into a yellow paste and smears it along a strip of linen. It smells faintly of turmeric and dash, and when he wraps it around a small wooden stick, it becomes a makeshift dental poultice, primitive maybe, but oddly elegant. A peasant's dental floss meets apothecary art project. Obscure tidbits: some Nubian burial sites contain skulls with tiny decorative inlays in the teeth, possibly made of ivory or polished shell. Scholars aren't sure if these were for aesthetics or status, or if someone just thought, you know what my molars need? Bling. The healer offers you one of the yellow wrapped sticks and pantomimes him chewing gently. You do, and immediately feel a tingle that goes all the way to your ears. It's like mint, if mintworm or philosophical. He laughs. The crowd chuckles. A grandmother claps politely. Historians still debate whether the Nubians developed this knowledge independently or absorbed it through trade with Egypt and Kush. Frankly, it's hard to say. The records are silent, and plants don't keep diaries. A dog wanders through the circle, receives a pat on the head, and exits without comment. Behind the table, a young woman writes something in charcoal onto a clay tablet, probably a note about your face during the chewing experiment. Hopefully not a review. You thank the man with a small bow. He nods like a man who's watched a lot of jaws come and go. As the sun begins to sink behind the dunes, the group begins to disperse. Some tucked wigs behind ears, others fold napkins, yes, actual napkins with surprising precision. Apparently folding cloth isn't just for future samurai. You head toward a nearby grove where the breeze dances through tamarisk trees, their feathery branches whispering secrets to the wind. You've still got the yellow chew stick, and your fig, and a vague but pleasant sense that your molars are now better people than you are. Not a bad afternoon, really. Evening descends like a woven blanket, heavy with the scent of river reeds and distant cook fires. You find yourself by a low hut made of sun-dried brick, its walls painted with ochre and chalk. A basket of dried herbs leans against the threshold, and from within comes the faint clatter of pottery being moved with the kind of care people usually reserve for infants or tax documents. You peek in. Inside, a young man in a pale tunic is arranging rows of clay jars on a long shelf. Each jar is labeled, though not in anything you recognize. Some bear little doodles: a tooth, a plant, a crocodile wearing what might be a smile. You step in quietly like a respectful ghost. He notices you and gestures warmly. You sit on a woven mat. It's surprisingly soft. Today's historical fact: the Nubians practiced a form of oral medicine that blended practical knowledge with ritual care. For gum inflammation, they used rinses made from boiled bark and salt. For toothaches, crushed frankincense and resin poultices. And for abscesses, if you're ready for this, hot stones and incantations. Not always in that order. He opens a jar and wafts the contents toward you. It smells like fennel and regret. He mimes rubbing it on the gums, then hands you a small, flat stick. You nod as if this is something you do every Thursday. You follow along. Obscure tidbit: in some Nubian texts, it suggested that certain herbs were believed to sing when chewed, probably not literally. Though one scholar insists the term song herb refers to a now extinct species that made a mild humming when crushed. Others think he just had bad handwriting. The paste stings, but in a good way, like truth serum for your molars. You feel your entire mouth wake up, alert and oddly elegant. You never felt elegant in your mouth before, but here we are. Historians still debate whether Nubian dental care was codified in any formal texts or passed down purely by oral tradition. Given the lack of paper, ink, or dentist's name Dave, the latter seems likely. The man brings out a small cup of something warm. You sip. It's bitter and strangely floral. And within seconds your tongue feels like it's been swaddled in eucalyptus and poetry. Your eyes water gently, but you're not upset, just surprised by how clean your entire face feels. A woman appears at the door, holding a small cloth bundle. She places it beside you with a nod. Inside are thin strips of dried bark, some linen, and what might be licorice root or possibly twigs pretending to be licorice root. You accept it as if accepting a minor destiny. Outside, frogs begin to call. A child laughs far off. You step back into the evening, your pouch heavier and your breath, once again, almost aggressively pleasant. You pass by a reflective pond, glance down, and for a second, your teeth wink back at you. You've never been more proud of your gums. You should chew on that. Literally. You walk beneath a night sky powdered with stars. Not glittering, just resting. Quiet and still, like the sky is watching its breath. The village has dozed off. Even the dogs have given up barking at ghosts or goats or whichever ancient spirits still roam the alleyways. You follow a torch-lit path toward a grove where the air feels cooler and more purposeful, like someone important chewed mint you recently. Tonight, you're headed to the healing hut. Again. But this time there's music-scoffed, rhythmic drumming, the kind you feel in your feet before your ears catch up. It's not ceremonial. Just background. Like low -5 beats for herbal dentists. Inside the hut, 5 elders sit in a circle. They're not talking. They're nodding. Slowly. As if their jaws are remembering something. Each has a twig in hand and a cup of herbal rinse in the other. This is not a dentist's office. This is dental meditation. Use it near the entrance, trying not to slouch. It feels like a space that notices slouching. Today's historical fact excavations in Sudanese Nubia have uncovered numerous graves with remarkably preserved teeth, indicating sustained oral health practices over lifespans that could reach well into their 60 seconds and 70 seconds, an impressive feat in ancient times, especially for people without toothpaste jingles or electric brushes. A younger apprentice moves around the room with a bowl of something sticky and brown. He offers it with a carved spoon, and one by one, the elders scoop a bit and press it onto their gums. You are not excluded. It smells like molasses, dirt, and good decisions. Obscure to Nubians sometimes rubbed powdered pearl oyster shell into their gums before festivals, partly for the shine, partly to invoke river spirits. No one's quite sure if the spirits approved, but the smiles probably sparkled in torchlight. You follow the motion. Press. Hold. Breathe through your nose. Your mouth now tastes like a bitter date trying to pass as cinnamon. Not unpleasant. Just determined. One elder hums a tune that might be a prayer, or just an ode to the lullaby. Another takes a swig from her rinse and lets it sit like a thoughtful opinion before spitting it into a carved basin shaped like a hippo. You hope it's decorative. Mostly. Historians still debate whether this kind of collective care gathering was a ritual, a social evening, or just the ancient version of a spa night. Whatever it was, the energy is communal, relaxed, and slightly minty. You close your eyes. For a moment, your mouth becomes the center of the universe. Not in a narcissistic way, just very present. When you open them again, one elder is gesturing you forward. You rise, slightly dazed, and sit before him. He examines your jaw with the gravitas of a man who has inspected thousands of motors and survived every one. He doesn't poke, prod, or judge. He nods. River mouth, he says. You don't know what that means, but you accept it. Outside, the torches flicker low. A reed whistle plays in the distance, carried by the wind like a bedtime story that forgot its ending. You leave with a warm cloth pressed to your cheek. You weren't in pain, but now you're definitely in peace. Your mouth feels like it's been blessed, and maybe it has. You wake before the sun does, not because you have to, but because the birds insisted. Their chirps bounce off the mud brick walls like gossip at the village well. You sit up on your mat and stretch. Your jaw clicks gently, a pleasant reminder of last night's serval napkin minus and minus chewing minus stick extravaganza. I soft knock at the reed door. It's a girl holding a basket. She gestures for you to come. No words, just teeth. She smiles. You follow. She leads you to the edge of the water, where early light brushes the river like a finger across silk. There, an older man is preparing bundles of plant sorting, drying, and tying them with a speed that suggests either lifelong practice or caffeine. Possibly both, though the Nubian version likely involved fermented tamarind. Today's historical facts, some of the earliest recorded uses of herbal distillation in the Nile Valley date back to Nubia. While not distillation in the modern sense, steam infusions were used to extract the essence of plants, for both healing and ritual, particularly for treating inflamed gums or ulcers. The man doesn't greet you, but he nods with his whole body. You understand. Words are optional this early. He hands you a damp cloth, filled with leaves, some crushed, some whole, all fragrant. You breathe them in and are immediately wide awake, or mildly panicked. It's hard to tell. Obscure tidbit in Nubian oral traditions. There was a story of a man whose teeth sang so beautifully after chewing sacred bark that birds followed him everywhere. Naturally, this annoyed the village elders, who reportedly bribed him with silence in the form of soft clay lozenges. You're shown how to fold the leaves into little bundles like dumplings for the gums. You press them to your cheekbones and hold. The sensation is cooling, almost icy, like a breeze from the future. Historians still debate whether this herbal packing was used daily or reserved for certain days of the lunar calendar. Either way, your glad today is apparently cheek dumpling day. The girl returns with a clay mirror. You inspect your face. No swelling. No sadness. Your teeth look grateful. You spend the rest of the morning helping bundle herbs. Lavender, bark, papier shreds, and what appears to be cinnamon, but smells vaguely like toasted nettles. The sun rises slow and sideways. It never rushes here. Someone offers you a drink hot, bitter, served in a shell. You sip and feel your entire nervous system nod approvingly. You've never felt more at peace with your jaw, or your morning breath. You think, for a second, about exporting this routine to your time. Then you remember toothpaste commercials and politely decline. No, this stays here. In Nubia. By the Nile, where healing is quiet. And your mouth finally gets the love it deserves. You sit beneath a palm tree, drowsy from sunlight and herbs as the Nile continues its indifferent glide. A breeze leans in and lifts your hair slightly, like it's checking your temperature. You're not sick. Just serene. Possibly overcured. The girl from before hands you a reed scroll. It's not for reading. It's for folding. You raise an eyebrow, and she mimics a mouth chewing. Oh, a dental exercise scroll. Apparently, even reading material here has oral intent. Today's historical fact archaeologists studying Nubian burial sites have discovered a high concentration of antimicrobial compounds in the dental calculus, yes, fossilized plaque of the deceased. This suggests that not only were herbal chews popular, but they actually worked. Their mouths were practically prehistoric pharmacies. You roll the scroll loosely, then tighten it, mimicking the technique you watched earlier. The exercise, you're told, strengthens the jawline. For beauty, for resilience, and perhaps for intimidating crocodiles, though that last bit might be been a local joke. A young boy appears carrying a carved wooden tray with bundles of dried herbs shaped like tiny pillows. He offers you one. You sniff it. It smells like pine needles, sandalwood, and dental ambition. Obscure tidbit: some Nubians believed that bad dreams were caused by angry teeth, and so slept with fragrant herb bundles under the jaw to calm the mouth spirit. Whether it worked or simply masked the breath of nocturnal snorers remains up for debate. You lie back and tuck the herbal pillow under your jaw. A woman nearby hums as she grinds something in a stone mortar, her rhythm steady and sleepy. You think she might be a dream dentist, or a very focused chef. Historians still debate whether the Nubian approach to oral health was uniquely medical or part of a wider metaphysical understanding of the body. But based on how relaxed your gums feel, you suspect the answer is simply yes. You drift for a moment. Not asleep, not awake. Somewhere between a smile and a snore. In the haze, you hear someone say, "Even crocodiles need soft gums." You're too relaxed to ask what that means. Later, you're sitting in a shaded courtyard behind the healing hut, where the afternoon sun slants across clay walls painted with simple squirrels' teeth and what might be laughing hippos. Someone has set out a low table with wooden carvings of teeth in various shapes. Some chipped, some perfect, all suspiciously expressive. You lift one. It's smiling at you. You put it back. A woman in deep blue robes sits across from you. Her fingers are stained with pigment. She nods and begins painting another wooden tooth with a tiny reed brush, adding what looks like eyelashes. You realize you're attending an ancient dental puppet workshop. Today's historical fact: the Nubians often used carved figurines and symbolic paintings as part of their medicinal rituals. Some believe these wooden teeth were used to teach children about oral care or possibly to frighten them into compliance. Education and fear often came as a combo pack in antiquity. You try painting one yourself. The brush is dry, the tooth uncooperative, but your effort is rewarded with a slight smile from the woman. Or maybe she's just laughing internally at your technique. A few children appear with twigs in their mouths, clearly practicing. One child holds a carved tooth like it's a sacred relic, whispering to it softly. You pretend not to notice. There are private conversations between mullahs and minds you dare not interrupt. Obscure tidbit: Nubian children were sometimes gifted their first chewing twig wrapped in linen, like a rite of passage. The cloth was often embroidered with the word "listen," as if to remind them that even chewing is a kind of communication. You fold your napkin from earlier and wipe a bit of pigment off your wrist. The woman gestures to a basin of warm water. You wash your hands and feel the faint tingle of some herb hidden in the rinse, perhaps eucalyptus, or just the memory of it. Historians still debate the purpose of some of these painted teeth. Are they to banish evil spirits, train apprentices, or simply amuse children to Wiggly for lectures? Likely all three. One child tries to balance a painted molar on his head. It falls. He blames the wind. The woman begins stacking the wooden teeth into a small shrine minus-like formation. You help. It's oddly satisfying. You step back, admire your collaborated masterpiece, and realize you've participated in what is possibly the world's oldest dental minus-themed art therapy session. And strangely, you feel a little healed. As the sun begins its lazy dip behind the date palms, you find yourself wandering back toward the riverbank, where the sky has taken on a sleepy orange tint, the color of roasted clay over ripe figs and stories that no longer hurry. Yuri invited without words, of course, to sit with a trio of elders seated on those stools near the water. They're boiling something in a pot that smells like bark and thyme. One of them stirs with a reed as if waiting for memories to rise to the surface. You sit on a stone still warm from the day. The pot bubbles gently and they begin to talk. Not to you, necessarily, but in your presence. A kind of oral history. Today's historical fact, in addition to their dental remedies: the Nubians were among the earliest African civilizations to develop structured oral storytelling, often tied to medicinal wisdom. Elders passed down health knowledge, not through scrolls, but through tales told under moonlight, where a toothitch might signal a lesson about betrayal, or a stubborn molar might represent ancestral strength. One elder holds up a curved stick and begins telling a tale about a hunter who lost all his teeth because he lied to a crocodile. You're not entirely sure whether the crocodile is real or metaphorical. It doesn't matter. Obscure tidbits, some Nubian fables taught that gossip could rot teeth faster than sugar, though sugar, notably, didn't really exist in these diets. Which means someone still managed to be petty without dessert. You laugh quietly. One elder glances your way and gives the tiniest smirk. Apparently, your dental humor is appreciated here. They pass you a cup of the bark tea. It's murky and earthy and tastes like boiled library. But it warms your chest and settles behind your eyes like a curtain being drawn slowly. Historians still debate whether these storytelling gatherings were part of official medicinal practice, or just what happened when no one wanted to sleep too early. Either way, you're honored to be here. A long pause fills the air. The pot hisses. The fire crackles. And in the silence, you feel like you've swallowed not just tea, but memory itself, softened and steeped until it no longer hurts. You exhale. Somewhere nearby, a frog offers commentary. Night has settled with its usual ceremony, no trumpets, just shadows folding themselves neatly into corners. You return to the main hut, where tonight's ritual is quieter still. Inside, a row of sleeping mats has been laid out, each with a small bowl beside it. The room smells of sage, dried fruit, and the unmistakable scent of polished wood. A woman motions for you to sit. She brings over a small jar, uncorks it, and lets you smell it. Clove, cinnamon, and something like lemon, but older. Maybe lemon's grandfather. Today's historical fact: clove oil, known for its numbing properties, was widely used in ancient African societies for tooth pain. While Egypt gets most of the credit in the textbooks, Nubian records suggest a far more creative use: clove combined with ash and honey as a night balm for sore mouths. The woman dips her fingers into the jar and gestures for you to open your mouth slightly, not a full dental exam, just a dab to the gum line. It burns gently. You flinch just enough to entertain her. Obscure tidbit: there were Nubian lullabies composed specifically to soothe children during teething, often whispered while rocking the child and rubbing the gums with fig leaf oil. One translated refrain includes the line, "Sleep now, moo mouth." No more fire. You lie back on your mat. The ceiling above is made of interwoven reeds, and the stars peek through the gaps like curious spirits. A slow breeze snakes in through the door. The bowl beside you contains rinsing water, infused with mint and salt. You swish. You do not spit. You let it rest, then swallow, because this is not a dentist's office, it's a rite of peace. Historians still debate the origin of the Nubian phrase "to sleep with clean teeth," which shows up in multiple oral records. Some believe it refers to purity. Others suggest it was a literal nightly routine, like brushing before bed minus the toothbrush, plus a lot more ceremony. Someone snores gently. Someone else mutters what might be a blessing. You close your eyes. And somewhere deep inside your gums, yes, your gums, you feel an odd sense of clarity. Not revelation, exactly. Just a quiet understanding that you too can carry peace in your mouth. Tonight, the silence does not demand explanation. It simply says rest. The morning arrives not with a bang, but with the soft shuffle of sandals on sand and the occasional cough of a rooster who's unsure if it's too early to commit. You stretch beneath the reed ceiling, mouth tasting faintly of cloves and mystery. Outside, the village is already in motion. Water jars being filled, goats bleating like they overslept, and a breeze that smells like tamarind and dust. Someone places a bundle near your feet, wrapped in linen, tied with palm fiber. Inside a fresh chewing twig, a folded cloth, and what looks like a tiny wax tablet with symbols carved into it. You are now officially equipped. For what, exactly, remains unclear. Today's historical fact: Nubians were known to use inscriptions not only for recording lineage or prayer, but also as instructional guides etched into soft wax or stone and passed between healers. Some of these tablets contain rudimentary anatomical diagrams of the human mouth with surprising accuracy. The wax tablet has a drawing of a tooth, a plant, and what might be an arrow pointing upward or a bird. Interpretive dentistry, it seems, was also a thing. You follow the morning crowd to the edge of the fields. There, a long bench has been set up under a tree. People take turns sitting while others inspect their mouths, not critically, just curiously. It's communal oral check minus update. You're not sure if it's official, but it certainly feels legitimate. An elder nods at you and gestures for you to open wide. You do. He looks inside your mouth for approximately 2 seconds, then pats your shoulder like a proud uncle who has just confirmed your molars are worthy of song. Obscure tidbit in some Nubian villages. A person's wisdom was partially judged by their teeth. Clean teeth meant you listened. Broken teeth meant you interrupted. There was even a saying, he who chews too soon speaks too fast. Use it with the others, passing around bundles of mint-minus wrapped twigs. It's strangely social, like a dental potluck. Someone offers dried fruit. You chew slowly, very aware now of every tooth. Historians still debate whether these gatherings had a formal structure or were simply habit turned tradition. What's certain is that people here trusted each other with stories, with herbs, and with their mouths wide open. You smile. No one flinches. The day is hot, thick, and determined. It presses down like a wool blanket that forgot its manners. You retreat into the shaded library hatyas, or library, though the word may be generous. Here, scrolls and reed-minus bound bundles lie in shallow clay alcoves, arranged not alphabetically but sensibly by smell. A young boy welcomes you in with a wave of his hand and a mouth full of date seeds. He chews one, spits it into a pot, and hands you a scroll. It's labeled with a small drawing of a mouth and a sun. Apparently, this is light reading. Today's historical fact, though the great library of Alexandria often steals the spotlight, lesser-minus known Nubian repositories existed along the Nile, especially in Kerma and Napade. These included records on healing, agriculture, weather, and even humor. One scroll recovered included instructions for pleasing tooth spirits with fermented honey offerings. You unravel the scroll carefully. The text is minimal, but the illustrations are delightful. One figure is brushing a tooth with what might be a feather. Another is offering a flower to what appears to be an irritated molar with eyes. Obscure tidbits: some Nubians believed into personality, certain teeth had temperaments, and molars were considered stubborn but loyal. Incisors, by contrast, were dramatic and prone to gossip. You chuckle softly. The boy nods, pleased you understand. In a corner of the hut, a girl is grinding pigment. She dips her reed brush and starts copying one of the images onto a clay tile. Her tongue pokes out slightly with concentration. You watch her finish, then blow gently on the ink. She hands it to you. A gift. Your own illustrated to the tile. Historians still debate whether these tiles were used for education or protection. Some were buried near doorways, others hung by sleeping mats. Either way, yours now lives in your satchel. You leave the library feeling unusually literate in gum culture. Outside, the sun hasn't moved much. But you have. And somewhere, your incisor gossips about it to your bicuspid. The village begins to quiet again, as if preparing itself for another dusk of shared stories and mouth rinses. You wander toward the edge of the cultivated fields where tall grasses sway in half-minus-hearted rhythm. Beyond them lies a garden not of vegetables, but of herbs. Plants with names that sound like poetry when whispered, and instructions that come without words. There is no fence, only a thin path between rows of tamarisk, marula, frankincense, and something that smells like dental courage. A woman beckons you closer. She carries a clay dish with ash and what appears to be crushed flower petals. You watch her mix them with a few drops of oil until it becomes a thick gray paste. She dabs it on her gums, then offers you the same. You hesitate. She raises an eyebrow. You comply. Today's historical fact: recent chemical analyses of Nubian skeletal remains show a prevalence of tetracycline, a naturally occurring antibiotic likely derived from fermented grains used in beer and plant pastes. It suggests that ancient Nubians were inadvertently consuming medicine long before lab coats were a thing. The paste is earthy, bitter, and somehow cooling. Your mouth tingles, then relaxes. A numb sort of comfort follows. Obscure tidbits: some Nubian tribes believed that applying paste to the gums before arguments made one's words more sharp and sweet. Essentially, an ancient toothpaste minus meats minus silver minus dung situation. You walk among the herbs, brushing your fingers along tall stalks. A few leaves crumble into your hand. You pocket them without ceremony. Souvenirs for your jawline. A young man ties bundles of dried plants and hangs them from a line stretched between two acacia trees. The plants sway gently like dental wind chimes. Historians still debate whether the medicinal knowledge of Nubian healers was shared with traveling merchants or held close as sacred local lore. Judging by the welcoming hands and freely offered paste, it seems secrets weren't hoarded, they were grown. You sit beneath the marula tree, pressing your tongue against the inside of your cheek. It feels new, softer, maybe wiser, or maybe your just emotionally attached to your gums now. Night falls with its usual elegance, draping the village in indigo and quiet assurance. You're back at the riverside again. The elders are here, of course, arranged in their usual crescent. Tonight, though, something is different. In the center of their circle lies a flat stone slab. Upon it a tooth. Not a carving this time. A real one. Polished. Revered. They don't speak for a while. And when they do, it's in a tone usually reserved for birth, death, or unusually good honey. Today's historical fact: archaeological digs in Sudan have uncovered ceremonial burials where human teeth were placed in bowls beside the body, suggesting they were preserved intentionally either as symbols of vitality, protection, or memory. Some were even adorned with resin or pigment. One elder begins a story about a warrior who carried the tooth of his grandmother for courage. Not in a pouch or pendant, but tucked in his mouth, behind his cheek, like a whisper from the past. You are not told whether this story is true. It doesn't matter. Obscure tidbits: some Nubian clans had a custom of gifting the first lost to the river with a tiny offering of fig paste. If the tooth floated, it meant the child would grow into a wise speaker. If it sank, well, they'd teach him pottery instead. A small girl approaches the slab. She places a bead beside the tooth, then presses her palm to the stone. Her eyes close. The air shifts. The river accepts this ceremony without comment. Historians still debate whether the tooth rites were a part of larger burial customs or unique local beliefs. Whatever their purpose, the reverence is unmistakable. You feel a weight in your pocket, the toothed tile, the crumbled herbs, the borrowed twig. You are now a bearer of oral tradition. Not because you know the rituals, but because you listened. And in this village, that is enough. The stars wheel overhead. The elders hum a wordless tune. And you quiet, content, and slightly minty let the sound carry you into the soft dark of Nubian night. The last morning in the sun-drenched, herb-scented village arrives like the exhale after a long, thoughtful pause. You wake not to sound, but to stillness, a hush that blankets everything, broken only by the slow rustle of linen curtains and the low gurgle of a distant water jar being filled. The hut is half lit, golden, gently swaying in the breeze, as if it too is deciding whether to get out of bed. You rise, stretch, and feel something curious, a smile forming without permission. A smile born from gums that feel, for once in your life, loved. Outside, the community has gathered under a canopy of woven reeds. You are ushered to a place near the front, handed a napkin, yes. That same one you folded days ago, now cleaner, crisper, and somehow proud of you. Laid out before the crowd are small clay bowls, each holding a different dental offering charcoal ash, fermented honey, dried neem twigs, and a curious amber resin that glows faintly in the morning sun. Today's historical fact: Nubian healers often combined ritual and medicine by offering these bowls in symbolic ceremonies, believed to both honor ancestors and reinforce community wellness. Dentistry here wasn't just about the individual, it was woven into the social fabric. One by one, villagers come forward and dip their fingers, brush their teeth, or simply press the herbs to their lips in silence. No rush, no rules, just reverence. A young girl presents a new wooden tooth carving, this one smiling wide, with painted gold leaf at the center. It is placed on a woven mat at the center of the gathering. People bow their heads, not in worship but in thanks. Obscure tidbits of Nubians believed that laughter itself had medicinal properties for the teeth. Laugh often, they said, and your molars will stay put longer. You don't doubt it. The laughter here feels like brushing from the inside. Historians still debate the origin of this communal rite, whether it came from ancient healing codes or grew slowly from shared routines. But like so many things in this place, its truth lies not in documentation, but in repetition. As the gathering winds down, someone hands you a pouch. Inside, a fresh chewing stick, a carved figure, and a scrap of cloth embroidered with a tiny smile. Your guide places a hand on your shoulder. "You've got good teeth," she says. And somehow you believe it. The sun begins its slow descent once more, stretching the shadows long across the sand, like fingers gently tucking the village in for the night. The river moves lazily now, quieter than before, as if even the water has grown thoughtful. You stand at its edge, soft breeze at your back, toes sinking slightly into warm earth. The scent of herbs lingers faintly in the air: clove, mint, maybe even a whisper of honey. Behind you, the huts are silent. Not empty, just resting. As though every wall and roof knows that some stories aren't told in words, but in the rhythm of footpaths, the folding of cloth, the hush of breath through clean teeth. You feel the weight of your satchel crone, a carved tooth, a bundle of dried leaves. Relics, yes, but also reminders. You step away from the river and back toward your mat, where the napkin waits, folded carefully into the shape of a half-minus smile. The sky darkens, stars arriving one by one, no hurry, no schedule. You lie back. The reed ceiling above you frames the night sky like a painting, and the breeze strokes your cheek with all the tenderness of a whispered blessing. Somewhere in the distance, a goat sneezes. You smile. Sleep approaches not like a fall, but like a settling. You are clean of tooth and quiet of mind. And as your breath deepens and the world softens into silence, you feel more than anything else that you have been well kept. That somewhere, in a sun-baked village filled with fragrant herbs and ancient wisdom, your smile has joined a lineage of quiet, laughing, chewing souls. And with that you drift, and you dream, and you are, finally, at peace.